Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and this is going to be a brief little discussion video on Psychopaths, episode 18. This episode opens essentially right where we left off, with Makishima having gotten away and our main cast of MWPSB District 1 investigators arriving on the scene. However, as soon as they get there, Genoza is all but told entirely that he's restricted from investigating the crash site of the aircraft that Makishima escaped from. And this just happens to coincide with the arrival of the Chief Minister, or whichever brain that serves as the one of many that powers the Sybil system has been freed long enough to take up the Chief Minister's guise, seeing as Makishima killed Toma, who was inhabiting it last episode. This chief and Genoza have a discussion that is not unlike a maneuvering, posturing power play game of chess. She's assessing his willingness to follow orders blindly. Under the guise of trying to award him and his crew at some level of faux respect for them, she decrees that he is to oversee the recapture of Makishima, bring him in safely, and that if Gino is wise, he'll stop asking questions and take this great honor, an apparent alternative to any potential disgrace he could suffer after having lost Kagari, who is still as yet unaccounted for and suspected, at least by the chief, to have ran off. Reluctantly, Genoza goes along with her orders once again, but this prompts what is perhaps in this episode the first of two entirely intriguing and tense scenes, where essentially Kagami, who Gino has been ordered to remove from the case, outlines his detective's reasoning as to what is all really going on, and he's calling it all to the letter, from Makishima's uncovering what Sybil really is, to whatever that happens to be having an obsession with Makishima that is only now surmounted after his escape. With nothing left to do, however, Kagami goes to leave and is followed, as usual, by Akane. She knows what he is capable of, and that at his core, he has a passion for taking down Makishima. He tells her as much in this episode, going so far as to say that relying on her to take out Makishima was a huge mistake, and that as a dutiful enforcer dog that he is, he should have, and moreover should from here on out, be the one to do it. Akane desperately tries to air her thoughts and feelings to him in reaction to this, that it was his yearning to once again be a detective, as he once told her, that inspired her to not walk away from this line of work, and he reluctantly agrees that he'll do his best to remain a detective and not become a killer like Makishima is. We also get a really wonderful scene between Genoza and his father Tomome herein, where Tomome shows he may be an old dog, but he certainly isn't any kind of slouch either. He knows enough to warn Gino that he needs to keep aware of the situation between the chief and the pursuit of Makishima, that the safest role he can play is a useless one. In not so many words, he's essentially telling Gino to follow his orders loosely and not give the chief the results she's expecting. Genoza really impressed me in this episode, I have to say. He came up with a plan that, at least in the planning stages, sounded great. He knew he needed to keep Kagami on the case, but in order to do so, without entirely going against his orders from the chief, he decided to temporarily transfer Ko to the District 2 crew. I really thought this was all going to work out, but no, of course not. The chief, as it turns out, was 2 steps ahead of the game and jumps in right at the moment when Kagami's about to board the District 2 truck. Genoza comes running in from around the corner after he realizes that the chief is there, but she essentially tells him in not so many words to keep his mouth shut, rather than digging the hole he's in any deeper. She taunts Gino and challenges his willingness to obey her. Will he, she asks, do his duty and punish Kagami accordingly? Genoza pulls out a Dominator and aims it at Kagami, but he's reluctant to fire. Making matters worse, this being the second of the 2 major scenes to ramp up tension in this episode, the chief takes hold of the Dominator and manipulates it, just as we saw Toma do before presumably killing Kagari, to a lethal status. Sweat was visibly building on Gino's brow, and he very nearly brought himself to firing, but in at the last second came Akane with a stunning shot. Cleverly, she turns to Genoza and tells him that his Dominator is seriously defective and needs maintenance. But the evil glare that the chief directs at Akane for doing so defiantly really sent a shiver down my spine, and I can only wonder from this point on if the sights of the Sybil system will broaden to include her as well. In the aftermath of all this, Tomome and Shinon help Kagami spirit himself away, using one of the deflective helmets Makishima designed, as well as a safe house Tomome had set aside back in his gumshoe days. I thought it was a bit of a mild interest that Shinon asks him if they should have gotten together at some point, but this is actually kind of interesting because I'd read some speculation somewhere to the effect that Shinon and Yayoi had actually had a thing going, so I don't know what to make of that. And before he finally leaves, as per request from Tomome, Ko leaves behind kind of message to Akane. This to explain why he's chosen to go into hiding and seek out Makishima. It's simply something he feels he needs to do. It's something that goes beyond just carrying out justice. Yet it is perhaps not quite an obsession either, as it might be with the Sibyl system in Makishima. Whatever it is exactly that drives him, he asks Akane not to lose who she is, or whom she believes herself to be, to not give up on her principles, even if it means the next time they meet each other, the dominator she draws will be aimed at him in the same manner that it would Makishima. And so by the end of this episode, I can only say I really feel like this was the episode that brought about the true direction of the final legs of this series. How it will unfold is anyone's guess, but now the characters are in their final positions. Kagami is spirited away. He's aiming himself toward Makishima, as is the rest of the crew, but will this change based on the current incarnation or alternating incarnations of the chief? This remains to be seen. And what of Makishima? Has he in his possession the means to disrupt and or destroy Sibyl's system and the brain trust ruling over it? Only time will tell, but I can say I'm thoroughly excited to see where this goes from here, and I'd also love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've seen this episode, what you thought of it, what you think of how the series will unfold, and otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this one. I hope you're all doing well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.